Hello, my name is Carlo Minassian. I'm the founder and CEO of LMNTRIX. Today I'll be giving you a demonstration of the LMNTRIX XDR platform. But before I get started, I'd like to tell you a little bit about our history, the approach we take, and our technology stack, so that when I'm demonstrating the platform, it all makes sense. So by way of background, the founders of LMNTRIX, including myself, we are veterans from the MSSP movement dating back into the late 90s, where we had to develop our own SIEM technology from the ground up because there was no SIEM technology back then. Having identified the flaws that exist when using logs and SIEM in cyber defense, we started LMNTRIX to address the root cause and resolve the problems to build cyber defense capabilities for today's threat landscape. So what LMNTRIX does is we're in the business of detecting and responding to advanced threats that bypass perimeter controls. These include APTs and nation-state type attacks. Once a threat is identified, it is validated, investigated, contained, and remediated. Following that, post-breach, we provide you with all of the forensic evidence to answer questions such as, when did the attacker get in? How long were they there? How did they get around? What tools did they use? Did they set up any backdoors? And what data did they access while they were on your network? We call this active defense. However, to deliver active defense, we had, first and foremost, we identified that we couldn't use the traditional or the historical approaches to cyber defense. You see, going back 20 years, the idea of security monitoring was to collect logs, send it to a SIEM, send it to an MSSP, and it was then their job to find the needle in the haystack. But what we've learned over the years is that what you get on the other end is more hay, meaning you get way too many alerts, too many false positives, too much noise, resulting in what the industry refers to as alert fatigue. So the issue isn't just caused by SIEM. The problem isn't just with the SIEM, but also fundamentally the approach we take by relying on logs is somewhat flawed. So we can't exclusively rely just on logs because in most cases, the answer isn't in the logs. And what I mean by this is that if your current perimeter controls and your security controls, such as your next-gen firewalls, IPSs, web security, and email security solutions are protecting and detecting threats, whenever they see something, they prevent it. They don't let it onto the network. Now, by collecting logs from those same controls, what are our chances? What is your chance? What is the ability of a SIEM to detect something new? So when you fundamentally start thinking differently and recognizing that when you do identify a threat, whether it's malware or a human attacker on your network, and when you go back in your logs or in your SIEM, you realize very quickly there is no sign of it. And the problem here is that if your current controls knew about it, they would have prevented it, they would have blocked it, they wouldn't have let it onto the network. And so what is our ability as defenders to be better than existing controls? And so that is the fundamental flaw that exists today in security monitoring. Because first and foremost, you've got to get your detection and detection engineering right to be able to detect more that's bypassing existing controls, not what they're preventing or what they're letting through. Because when a control doesn't know about a threat, they roll out the red carpet and they let it through. And it does its damage without any detection. So how we approach this at LMNTRIX is effectively using this three-tier model. The LMNTRIX XDR platform is effectively a holistic, multi-vector, multi-tenanted, hyper-converged cyber defense platform. It is built like Salesforce. It's kind of a Salesforce for cyber defense. We are doing to cyber defense what Nutanix did to compute, storage, and networking. The LMNTRIX XDR unifies machine and underground intelligence, next-gen antivirus, EDR, NDR, network forensics, UEBA with deceptions everywhere. And it complements this with automated validation, investigation, containment, and remediation from our Cyber Defense Center at no extra cost. This complementary service is offered through our MSSP and MDR partners to ensure that we deliver a consistent outcome to each and every client, irrespective of whether our partners have the resources to recruit and retain a 24/7 threat detection team, a threat response team, threat hunting teams, threat intelligence teams. We ensure that they deliver a repeatable outcome to each and every client. The LMNTRIX XDR platform provides protection within enterprise, cloud, hybrid, and ICS or OT environments, and it covers much of the attack surface. It is a fairly logless approach or seamless approach to cyber defense. Where we collect logs, it's purely for the purpose of post-breach forensics and investigations, and for monitoring SaaS and PaaS environments, where the vendors don't allow us to deploy our tech stack. We call this active defense, and its definition is that it uses a validated and integrated threat detection and response architecture to hunt down advanced and unknown threats that routinely bypass perimeter controls. And this definition is quite important for us in that we are only focused on detecting threats that bypass perimeter controls. We don't care what they are preventing, what they are blocking. And our validated and integrated approach dictates that clients block as much as they can using at least 3 controls. That's the firewall, the web security, and email security solutions. These 3 controls together block most of the common threat vectors into any network. These are the known threats, things that vendors have a signature for. We then deploy the LMNTRIX tech stack on the inside of the client network. This technology stack is made up of approximately 14 detection techniques, whether it's email or web sandboxing, intrusion detection, bot monitoring, data leak monitoring, and anti-malware, anti-spyware, anomaly detection, endpoint hunting, network hunting. We layer all of this on the inside of the client network, on a quiet network, because the client at this time has prevented most of the and blocked most of the known threats. So we're working on a quiet network. At that point, we just wait for the perimeter to fail. Once we detect the threat, whether on the network or on endpoint, we validate it, investigate, contain, and remediate. We never send unvalidated alerts to clients. And we do this both at the endpoint level and by integrating our platform through APIs with next-gen firewalls and cloud providers such as Zscaler, Netskope, and Cisco Umbrella. So irrespective of where the end users are, we're able to block them using IP, domain, and URLs. The LMNTRIX XDR platform takes a very holistic and multi-vector approach with unlimited retention window of full fidelity network and endpoint traffic with innovative security visualizations and the ease and cost saving of an on-demand deployment model, which I'm going to share with you in a second. Let's go through the tech stack. Our technology stack is made up of 6 core elements. This is detect, respond, deceive, hunt, intelligence, and recon. These 6 elements work together as a single integrated system. Underpinning the system is a tech stack that shares context and intelligence. Individually, they're very powerful on their own. However, when you combine these to share context and intelligence, it becomes a force multiplier. We completely operationalize this in that we configure it, we update, patch, upgrade, etc. There are 0 servers to be installed and configured. The entire thing sits as a platform, as a SaaS platform in the cloud, with network sensors and endpoint agents and perceptions and intelligence deployed across the inside of your network. We then complement this with continuous monitoring, hunting, and response, together with our localized MSSP and MDR SOC partners. And we have a saying: we deliver 0 hype, 0 false positives, 0 excuses. And what we mean by this is that whenever you hear from us, it matters. We validate everything before sending you an alert. The last thing we want to do is be another MSSP that sends you hundreds of alerts a month, or another SIEM that sends you thousands of alerts that are unvalidated and makes you do all the heavy lifting. We're in the business of delivering risk reduction in the form of validated breaches that are either malware or human attackers that have bypassed your perimeter controls. So today, on average, we deliver around 8 to 12 validated incidents per client per month. There are clients on the extreme end that have contractors coming and going, where we detect over 30 to 40 incidents per month that have bypassed their perimeter controls. On the lower end, clients that exercise best practice with defense in depth architectures and zero trust architectures, with good user awareness training, and regular patch and vulnerability management and pen testing, etc. These clients experience less than 5 incidents per month. So what these elements are at a very high level: LMNTRIX Detect is an NDR. LMNTRIX Hunt is a network forensics and UEBA technology. Both of them are network sensors. LMNTRIX Intelligence is a threat intelligence platform with 300 threat feeds, including commercial, open source, and our own sensor network. LMNTRIX Respond is a next-gen antivirus together with EDR capability, and it's critical to a delivery of any MDR service that requires validation, investigation, containment, and remediation on the endpoint. LMNTRIX Deceive essentially deploys deceptions everywhere. We create an illusion on your network. So when an attacker has a pointer breach, they don't know what's real and what's not. And finally, LMNTRIX Recon is underground intelligence, where we notify you of planned attacks, inadvertently leaking data, or employees selling data and other malicious activities targeted at your enterprise. So that's a quick summary of the LMNTRIX approach and how we deploy it, and a little bit about our background. I'm now going to switch to the LMNTRIX XDR and start the demo. Okay, so when you initially log in to the LMNTRIX XDR, you land at the HUD, or the heads-up display. This is where you get complete visibility of your validated breaches, as well as alerts that are still going through the validation and investigation process. It allows you to go back retrospectively, look at logs and packets, and it's got an unlimited retention window with full fidelity network and endpoint forensic data. So if I walk you backwards from a validated incident to an alert, this is kind of how it looks on the platform. Logs and packets are going to Explore, are available from Explore, where you can search, do retrospection, do your post-breach forensics and investigations. Alerts and threats go into the kill box, and this is where you go and conduct your threat hunting. You do all of your actions on threats, such as isolating a host, stopping a process, stopping a service, deleting a file, and so on. And this is represented by the left circle that you see on the HUD. Validated breaches and incidents end up as incidents, and this is represented by the right-hand circle. So as I move my cursor onto the circle, you'll see it stops working and it shows me any open incidents that are currently going through validation and investigation phases, and there is none available today. But by default, the HUD always shows you the last 30 days of data. So O stands for open incidents and A stands for all incidents. So you can see in the last 30 days for this client, we've detected 9 confirmed incidents already. And they're broken up across the MITRE ATT&CK techniques on the left and right hand side of the circle. So now watch that number 9 as I go back 23 months when we initially started this customer's subscription in October 2019. So I'm going back in time now, and you can see what value we've delivered this client over this period. 276 threats that have bypassed their perimeter controls, that have been completely missed by their next-gen firewalls, web security, email security, and endpoint solutions. This is the core value proposition delivered by LMNTRIX. And as I select each of these techniques or threats, I'm able to see what has been detected on the left-hand side. For example, if you go into defense evasion, I can see here that there is a Cobalt Strike malware loading through process injection, and 100% of the investigation and remediations being completed, and there's some rudimentary details about that incident, high-level details. Now let's go inside this incident. At the top part of the incident, you'll see that the priority of the incident and that it's been closed and the name, as well as the progression of the investigation. These 7 dots here represent the 7 phases of the kill chain, and you can see that we detected at the exploitation phase. MITRE ATT&CK mapping is defense evasion, and it is a targeted incident. Now, in the middle part of this incident, you'll see how the system automatically builds up each incident once it does the first level of validation. Each incident's got 5 sections of what is it, where is it, when did it get here, how did it get here, and how did we detect it. Irrespective of whether how the threat was detected, every incident is communicated in clear English in this manner. And as I scroll down, you'll see the communication between the client, our channel partner, MSSP, and MDR partners. And on the right-hand side, you see the investigative actions that the client needs to take. And sometimes there are many, many actions that a client may need to take, such as adding a hash to their email so that the attacker we can block a threat that keeps persisting. And more importantly, you'll see a couple of options here. Firstly, the fact that it was validated and confirmed as a breach. And secondly, that it was contained. Using these IPs, domains, and URLs, using the system, we're able to automatically contain the threats on the client's perimeter by injecting these IOCs across their either cloud providers or their next-gen firewalls, as I described earlier. So as I click on incidents now, actually, let me show you a little bit more what the inside of the incident looks like. So if you've got technical folks on your team, you're able to go and have a look at the infected machine diagram showing the affected users and the machine, the root cause, the infection, and the connections made out. A summary of the root cause, infected resources involved, including the computer names, operating systems, and IPs, the process diagram showing the parent process, malicious process, loaded modules, and child processes, a kill chain diagram showing what the attack did in the last 5 stages of the kill chain. We don't really usually care about the reconnaissance and the weaponization phases. A timeline diagram, as well as a sandbox summary, including the behavior analysis, network analysis, file system details, and registry details. Now, you're able to download a report of this incident and socialize it internally at any point. And what the report shows you is essentially a PDF, nicely formatted version of the exact same details that you saw on the platform. As far as we know, no other vendor today can deliver automated incident and forensic reports like this automatically in this format. If you hit the Performance tab on the left-hand side, you'll be able to see very easily the system calculates how we've been performing against the contract, including a last 30 days of all the incidents that have been opened and closed. And there's a lever here that you can use to see incidents over the entire term of the contract. In the middle, there's a section called How Are We Getting More Effective, which shows you our investigation speed and remediation action speed compared to the previous month. And you're able to drop down here on the left-hand side and see how we did, for example, May against April, as well as the number of unresolved incidents from that period. Now, as you scroll down, you see details of the shortest, median, and the longest incident, which is helpful if, for example, it takes your team a week to reset a password. You're able to say, go back to your team and ask them, this is a 30-minute process. Why did it take us so long to reset a compromised credentials? Now, resilience is effectively our way of identifying repeated incidents or repeated threats and identifying its root cause and making recommendations to you. In this case, you can see we've made, on 3 different occasions, we made 3 different recommendations to this client, including the fact that we need them to configure authoritative DNS diversity. And each one is mapped to actual incidents in the system. In another case, in another date, we identified the need to protect against command and control systems, as well as conduct a monthly user awareness training. And on the bottom, there's additional details about the resilience recommendations that we made, and you're able to come here and easily see those recommendations. Our partners are able to create these recommendations by simply adding content here, such as block macros on all machines apart for finance department. They can then identify an impact. There's a predefined best practice library they can select or select their own. In this case, we're going to configure Microsoft Office macro settings to disrupt attackers. We have predefined categories of things to do associated with an incident, as well as a status. And then that's how it's created. So if I go back into incidents, you'll be able to filter and see your incidents based on time, based on MITRE ATT&CK or kill chain mapping, based on status or priority or how we detected it, as well as sorted by different categories. What clients really like is this right-hand activity metric section, where in this particular case, you can see we've gone back, 23 months approximately. The client can go back to the executives and at any point and report about how the subscription, how their LMNTRIX relationship is going. In this case, we reviewed over 10,000 alerts that have bypassed their perimeter controls. We've launched 291 investigations, of which 115 were of high priority. We kicked off 272 investigative actions across the different elements in the platform. We uncovered 291 security incidents, of which 71 were targeted. And finally, we identified 265 remediation actions. 126 of them were across the network, 58 across the endpoint, 70 across network and endpoint, and 11 across the user. And these remediation actions, what we're referring to are the containment and the remediation capabilities that we've delivered to this client. So that's a little bit about how you navigate validated breaches and incidents. And those you can also get to those with this middle left section where by different categories of incidents, how the techniques that we used. So now let's go through what a typical alert looks like across the entire tech stack. And I'm going to give you an idea of how you get to those across every element. So on the right-hand side, you can see the alerts coming in at the different timelines, an hour ago or 2 hours ago, in this case. So, and you're able to click them and then explore them further. You're also able to look at it based on a histogram on the bottom right here. And the histogram allows you to see your data based on hours, days, or weeks. And at any point, you're able to navigate over each of the details, whether source or destination, and send that to investigate in the kill box, search in Explore, view intelligence, or copy it into the clipboard and take it outside the system. On the top left, you can see the threats are categorized over the last 23 months across different threat vectors. Now, the left-hand circle shows you the threats across network, endpoint, human adversary, and data breach. This is designed like an onion. The closer you get to the center of the onion, any threats that get closer to the center of the onion, the worse the scenario. And based on the different regions the threats exist, they are mapped to the different regions on the globe. And these are the most active, prominent threats right now. So the top right represents these two continents, bottom right, Australia, New Zealand, and so on. And at any point, you're able to select these and view geolocation details about it. You're able to, again, as I said earlier, identify threats through the histogram and again, do the same thing. Now, these are network threats, and I'm able to send it into a kill box and show you what a typical network threat looks like. So you can see in this case, it is a command and control. This is the application using it. The destination, the origin, the severity, and a description of what the network threat looks like. Again, from here, you're able to view intelligence or view more details about it, about this particular incident. At any time, you're able to navigate threats across using the bubbles or use the histogram to look at the threats before and after this particular incident across the entire tech stack, whether it's across packets, network, endpoint, intelligence, deceptions, underground intelligence. It brings that all together into a single interface. Now let's look at a typical endpoint alert. Okay, so you can see it loads details about that alert, about that threat, and in this case, it's a suspicious .NET reflection attack, and it shows you the entire attack chain of what it did in terms of the process that was running on the endpoint, the path, the user, the process ID, the command line. How many seconds later, another process started running. So many seconds later, another process started running with this command line. And finally, 3 days later, this process started running with this command line. This user was logged in on this endpoint. And these are the alert details. And you can see the associated alerts to this particular incident. And what you're able to do right here is you can dismiss it or start an investigation. An investigation is effectively your hunting to see the scope of infection. So for example, you can say to look for additional details on this, and you can start a hunt, select the elements you would like to hunt on, as I'm doing right here, and confirm the hunt, and that will produce the hunt results on the investigation. So I've just created one previously to save us time. But you can see here, once the results of the hunt come in, you're able to now hunt based on the different hunt types. This eases the hunting process by giving you access to all of our analytics that we use for hunting. So that even if you're not an advanced or mature hunter, you're able to still come here and say, I'm looking for, example, persistence-based threats, and view data based on a proprietary malware score, COM hijacking, search order hijacking, phantom DLL hijacking, and other different types of threats, threat hunts. This is about hunting without the use of IOCs. without knowing about the attacker's details, without having any prior knowledge. It's a methodical approach to adversary hunting. It's a very precise approach. For example, on the network, you're able to look at untrusted certificates in this case and have a look at the details of any untrusted certificates and see how many machines have that particular executable, in this case, loaded or used. The graph on the left-hand side allows you to pick the unique occurrences on the percentage of endpoints. So naturally, if you're seeing the same threat occur across, or the same details available across most of your endpoints, then you know very well at that point that it's not going to be a real threat. However, if you reduce this number, in this case, we can see it's right now it's looking at 123 three results. When I'm only looking at 20% of incidents, if I reduce that to a lower number of endpoints that it applies to, I can see that only 96 of them have this untrusted certificate. And by clicking on any of these details, you're on the bottom, it will show you all of the details associated with that particular file. So moving back to the HUD, let's have a look at how a typical human adversary incident looks like. So this is either a red team or a pen tester or an insider looking to move laterally. That's the attacker's IP, the decoy that they've touched, the source and destination ports. And you can view more details, again, in a similar way by sending the data into the kill box. Now I can see on the right-hand side the date, the decoy ID that this happened. It was a HTTP GET method. They are trying to log into a Cisco decoy or honeypot. That's the host name, and that's it. The attacker is using Chrome, it looks like. They tried to log in from 5 different machines to the decoy IP. Here are the attack details in terms of the HTTP GET method and RDP login, and the destination ports that they use to try and log in. I'm going to now switch to another client that allows me to show you what data breach alerts look like. It's going to go back a little bit in time. So several things I'd like to show you here. Firstly, as I move into the config section of the platform, you'll see that I'm able to configure many aspects of the solution. Well, actually, I'll use the other client to do this, but here I wanted to show you all of the policy options that are available to you when configuring your actions in terms of the endpoint. Here you can see all of the preventive actions in terms of how we deal with threats, such as block lists, credential access, exploits, and in each one you're able to configure details and protection options for that. These are the automated prevention of capabilities and how we deal with each category. Now, adversary behaviors, this is the anomaly and the machine learning and analytics capability that allows you again to configure across the different sections of all the different behaviors that we track and how we respond to those across Windows, Mac, Linux, and Solaris. So at any point I can say move to lateral movement or persistence or privileged escalation, and I'm able to configure any options related to that feature. This is a very comprehensive anomaly detection based endpoint that allows us to do both exploit prevention, malware detection, including fileless attacks, malware attacks, ransomware, Trojans, attacker tooling, as well as macro-based attacks. So looking at the left-hand circle, the last element that's available is the data breach, which is effectively what we've seen leak from the company network. And again, you're able to select these and look at the details of where we found it on the dark web or in the, and any criticality or relevance and the hackishness score directly from here. And you can view more information about that particular incident by simply clicking on it, and it takes you and gives you details of what we've seen. In this case, that's the body and the metadata of where the threat occurred, including the onion site, so you don't get yourself hacked. So this is how typically data breaches are shown. In the next release, there'll be another layer added to this that covers mobile for iOS and Android support for our endpoint agent. So we've kind of covered what alerts look like. At any point, as you saw earlier, you're able to also send alerts to Intel. And if there is any intelligence in the system, it will be reported automatically like this. In this case, it's a medium risk. It's found across our 300 threat feeds, and if there's something is not there, or you wanted to send it outside, you're able to send it across a number of external links to get additional information on the threat. Or you could simply click on Intel and navigate all of the indicators across last seen, risk type, as well as based on category, threat, risks, and when it was last seen. Now here, again, you're able to either use the globe or use the indicators on the left-hand side to get intelligence about each element. One thing you'll notice is that these are already in our system, so we don't have to scan these. But if we don't have any intelligence, we are able to scan it in real time. So here are some attributes relating to this IP, this IOC, in terms of the ports open, the protocols it's running, and the technology underpinning that. If we have a screenshot of it so that you don't get yourself breached, so use a proxy to take a screenshot of it, and then we share with you all of the details related to that. And you can see there was an indicator here associated with it. And you're able to get lots and lots of details about each threat. So if I go back into Intel, on the right-hand side, you can see some of the active threat actors based on groups that we're tracking right now. For example, in this case, I can see that it is a higher risk APT group and any news and details associated with it, and any indicators associated with it. Sometimes there'll be many indicators which you're able to use to go from one indicator and see which other threats APT groups are using the same indicator or same attack method or technique. Such as in this case, you can see all of these are being used across other threats. So you're able to jump to this particular threat immediately and get details about that particular threat. And there's no screenshot of this, obviously. So intelligence also gives you access to our research, our network vulnerability database, including alerting you of vulnerabilities associated with your environment. It gives you access to our playbooks, gives you access to the attack mode and navigator. I'm not going to go through all this detail because the complete presentation or the demo takes over 2 hours, and I wanted to keep this fairly short. Other thing you can do is elect to map threats across the globe, as you can see, and using a different color scheme if you choose to use, or turn it into a world map using this button here. At any time, you're able to look at the threats that you've shortlisted or you're monitoring, and again, get an Intel card on that particular thread. The other element that's worth demonstrating is LMNTRIX Recon. This is effectively giving you full access to our underground intelligence, where we've infiltrated over 500 forums, including many other sources, including Discord, FTP, IRC, leaks, Telegram, and other methods. We give you full access to all of our one of the largest breach databases in the world, so you can narrow it down. You can look at your data based on a different range, or narrow it by domain, and many other factors. So in this case, you can see a number of alerts that I've generated based on apple.com that I'm tracking here for this demonstration. These are the different monitorings that I've set up, predefined monitorings. These are the alerts that are being generated in real time. And these end up going into the HUD, into the root of in the center part of that circle on the left-hand side. You're able to view additional details, including metadata about that thread. These are automatically generated as the system identifies incidents. For example, in this case, if I was Apple and I was subscribing to this service, I could do a real-time search on this, or I could save this search and set it to run once a week, for example, and give it a criticality, and that will automatically trigger alerts as you're seeing here. Or in real time, you can come here and say, show me all Apple-based apple.com mentions, and run a search on that. And that will come back and give you the results in real time of what's in that database of 231,000 occurrences in this case. And you can see on the right-hand side, there's a hackishness score, which tells you what are the chances that it is a real breach or threat. Or you could come here and say, only show me occurrences based on a threat group, such as based on a different language. So I can have a look at, for example, I'm interested in, say, Russian language forums talking about apple.com. Well, there's 663 instances in this case, and you'll need to be able to translate that. Again, it's not open web, it's purely deep and dark web. That is all we specialize in. Other things you can do here is use this hackishness bar to only look at threads or mentions that have a high probability of it being a breach. So I'm just going to remove a filter based on Russian language to see anything that has a high chance of it being an incident. So in this case, you can see there's quite a bit there, and I'm able to view them in real time and go into the details. It's most likely because there is a password or something like that being shared that belongs to an Apple employee or on sale. And you can see here a lot of passwords that are on sale right here. Okay, so that gives you a little bit about how Intel works and all of the details that exist there. You do also have access to our sandbox, so you can upload your own artifacts. You can scan in real time anything you wish, such as if something is not in the database, you could do a passive or an active scan. In this case, I'll just do a passive one to save time. That gives you some information about IBM.com, and you can navigate to that and see what intelligence we have about IBM.com. Well, it is a low risk and other, it is what it's rated on Cisco Umbrella, any redirects, when it was first attributed, any screenshots we've taken over time of the site, as well as other details and any other, and on bottom you'll see mail server details and other redirects and so on associated with this domain, including all the cookies and so on. Okay, so from here, I'm going to jump to reports. Reports allow you to see your basically a weekly report that you can download at any time for different months as the client's been in subscription. It's broken up across executive summary, detections, validation, response, and visibility. And the data is consistent with what you've seen during the previous 30 days. Well, I'll just show you August in this case. So you can see there's a lot more data. It's a lot more data rich because I've looked at a previous month. And you can download these as in PDF format and send it to executives and management. Now, at the bottom of this report, you'll see under the navigation bar, there is a lot more details, additional details we've supplied to you that are generated automatically, such as attacks and exploits on software vulnerabilities, or machines infected with malware or bots, usage of high-risk web applications. So this data is available through our platform in real time. And you can see, I won't go through the details, but you can generate custom reports, on-demand reports, and schedule reports. Again, where possible, you have the ability to configure your decoys, and on the right-hand side, you can generate as many different decoys as you want for both IT and cloud and OT environments. And these are the different varieties of decoys that are available. You're able to configure them and download them directly. You can build your breadcrumbs, again, based on different categories and features that we have available here. You're able to download them for Linux, Windows, and Mac. Tags are fake files, if you like, that you're able to generate fake tags across your environment, such as a fake PDF or a fake email or a fake executable, and deploy it around the place. Personas are fake identities that you're able to deploy everywhere. Well, this client hasn't got any configured. And you've got your exception list and trusted applications as well. The left-hand side allows you to see all of your detect sensors, hunt sensors, all of your decoys that are deployed across your IT, enterprise, and OT and cloud environments and hybrid environments. So this client's got about 26 deployed, I can see. Bottom left allows you to see complete details of the code and the agent that's running on your endpoints. And you're able to conduct investigations, upgrade the sensors, upgrade and apply different policies. For example, I'm able to have a look at this particular endpoint and see different details about it in terms of the execution, a particular execution threat that it had. This one's a Microsoft Office descendant process, and you can see the endpoint associated with it and the alert and what the details of that particular incident. In this case, every incident automatically gets mapped to the MITRE attack techniques that are associated with this particular threat. So going back into the endpoints, you can see how many are active, how many are inactive, and how many are unmonitored. And again, going back to that particular endpoint, I can see certain how it was different elements that we've been collecting about this, including the policy response, how it's been configured. You get full access to the Python code that was used to configure this particular endpoint. You're able to also look at other surveys that we've done or details that we've been collecting off this endpoint. Well, this one, let me see if I can find another one. There's a system survey of this. And here you can see the operating system details, the drives involved, the interfaces, memory usage, and other information associated with this, including any patches that are deployed on this endpoint. So all of this is available directly from this view. Again, if you wanted to conduct a hunt, you could simply choose what you're hunting across. In this case, it's Windows. I'm going to be hunting across the active machines that are currently on. I'm going to select, let's say, the 50 in this view, and I'm going to create my investigation. And this gives you access to the same hunt, but now you're going to be capturing information across all endpoints instead of the just one that we saw earlier. You can upgrade your sensor directly from here. You're able to apply policies, predefined policies, or configure your own policies as you saw earlier. The top right-hand side allows you to see and map the throughput of the different protocols that we're seeing on this network across our network sensors. It's as simple as that, and what we are seeing at real time. So that concludes a demonstration of the LMNTRIX XDR platform. If you have any questions or like to get additional information, please reach out to us. You can get in contact using our website or info@lmntrix.com.